Hello, hello, hello. Hola, hola, hola. Welcome to a new episode of the Yoga for All Bodies video podcast. Today, I have an amazing guest for you. Ria Tirazona is a yoga and mindfulness facilitator, educator, and licensed psychologist from the Philippines. A previously self-confessed emotional eater, her struggle with weight has opened her up to new ways of celebrating her body and treating herself with love and compassion. And this is what she wants to offer with others through trauma-informed, accessible, mental health-aware movement and mindfulness practices. Hi, Ria. How are you?
Hello, good morning from the Philippines. Thank you very much for having me here. I really enjoy connecting with people who really advocate for representation for bigger bodies, and that yoga and movement is really a practice that everybody can attain and come into. Yeah, so thank you again for the invitation. I did forget to change my name. I'm Bigger Body Yoga PH on Instagram. So I do hope to connect with your audience as well.
Absolutely. I will give all the information, so no worries. Actually,
Perfect.
You can read it right now under your picture.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
Thank you so much for being here. I love the work you're doing, and it's so important. So I have so many questions. Yes. And I would like to know how yoga came to your life.
All right. Yoga came to my life officially. I say officially because it was something I wanted to do even when I was younger. But I started coming into yoga in 2011. This was the year that I said, it started as a New Year's resolution, right? I said I wanted to do yoga and learn French. So just before the new year, I went and bought a yoga mat, a yoga block, and a strap. It came as a set. So it was on sale in a hardware store of all places. Yeah, it was
How cool.
How cool, right? Well, a hardware homeware store here in the Philippines. So I ran into it and I said, oh, this must be a sign because it was on sale. I wasn't looking for it that particular day, but I saw it. So I said, okay, this is a sign that my intentions for the coming year is going to come true. So I bought it, and then I looked up some classes close to my home. That was the start. I never did learn French, but the yoga did work out for me. So that was, it started in 2011. I was so lucky to find some very good teachers close to my home. And it really helped that they were home shalas or home studios. Because, someone living in a bigger body, as I said, I wanted to discover yoga earlier on, but I was always uncomfortable. I was always ashamed, right? Because, when you can see people who can touch their toes easily, kind of maneuver their body in a very smooth and coordinated way, and then you can't even move comfortably, right? It was a little hard for me to feel confident that this is something that I can do. I always thought I am uncoordinated because dancing was never something I enjoyed. Just like, how can this be acceptable? And of course, that public setting, I always felt there might be judgment towards me. So as I said, I was lucky that there were two really great teachers, three actually, by the time I got into it fully, that had very small spaces. And because it was less popular when I started, oftentimes it would be just me. Yeah, so with just me in the class, and it was really wonderful that the teachers still went on with the class. So they didn't cancel or charge me a private rate or whatnot. So that became my access into this practice. Then when I started feeling more comfortable in my body, recognizing that, hey, nobody really cares what I'm doing. They're not watching me, right? When I realized there's not as much judgment as I anticipated, then I started going into a slightly bigger yoga space. And this were like about 8 to 10 people at a time, right? So that was still within my realm of comfortability. And then eventually I found ease in coming into full-blown yoga studios.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
that's how it started.
Awesome. And with what style did you started your practice?
Yes, that's a good question. I started with yin yoga, which I feel was very perfect for me because it's slower pace. There's a lot of opportunity to notice how it feels in my body, how to adjust and move in a way that is comfortable for me. There were a lot of props that were easier to use because you're not moving very quickly, right? Unlike a vinyasa class, which yes, it's very possible to use blocks, and I actually teach a full vinyasa classes with props like chairs, blocks, the wall, etc. But it is a little more challenging to kind of transition from one pose to another as compared to yin. And also, yin felt very forgiving, right? For me, in my opinion, it felt very forgiving in a sense that there was no need to catch up. There was no need to worry about my breathing and the movement and what comes next all at once, right? It could be notice your breathing first, then the movement, the shape, how it feels, and so on and so forth. So that was the very first entry. Then I came into Ashtanga and Vinyasa yoga classes. I did prefer Vinyasa because of the variety it offers, the spontaneity that comes with the sequences. Ashtanga, as we know, is a set sequence, right? And that often frustrated me because the principle of Ashtanga yoga really is you want to master or perfect. I don't really like those words so much, but the point was you had to really get it right before you could move on to the next shape, right? And that felt very frustrating for me because again, coming from a bigger body, touching the floor is challenging, so I'd always need a block. Right, coming into binds because I had a belly, thicker thighs, and shorter arms. It's a little hard to reach your hands behind your back and find your fingers without a strap, right? So it kind of made me feel less than. I did have really great teachers, right, supporting me then. So that wasn't the factor. It was really just the principle of it has to be done this way. That was a struggle for me. Yeah. Nowadays, my practice is just a little more somatic based, embodied practices using some yoga asanas at times, but that's really just moving a little bit more with what the body needs at the moment. Yeah.
Amazing. I also prefer that. And it's what I do now.
Yeah.
And it is amazing that you started with yin yoga. Because what we usually see, especially if it is from New Year's resolutions, they say, okay, I'm going to start yoga, and the synonym is to go and sweat it out and
lose
kill
weight,
yourself.
right? Yeah. But to be fair, when I set my resolution, it wasn't for weight loss. It wasn't a conscious decision yet at that time that I'm using movement to celebrate my body, to come into a sense of welcoming myself just as I am. I had no idea about those things. It was just, it came at a point of my life where actually I was not as big as I am now. I had lost some weight previously because I had gotten sick, right? Not the best way to come into a relationship with your body, but it made me realize that as long as I'm healthy, as long as I do things that support my body, whatever size, shape, or condition it might be, it's perfect. It's what I need to do rather than have to fix my body so that it is something else. Right. So yeah, it wasn't weight loss, but you're right? The first things usually were like, yeah, when we come into New Year's resolution, I need to sweat it out. I need to prepare for quote unquote my summer body and so on and so forth.
Yes. And in the same line as you're mentioning it, how was this journey to the self-accepting your body, your mind? What can you share with us?
Oh, it's been a long journey. It's been a lifelong journey. And I think, it will continue to be a part of my journey till the end of my life. I will say that while I am more accepting and kinder to my body, there are days when I catch myself still kind of being judgmental towards myself. Like, I think that is part of the human experience. But what I've learned is to recognize when these come up, and then remind myself to treat myself kindly, right? And before, I used to think treating myself kindly would be giving myself a treat, literally like eating something that has been considered quote unquote bad, right? So there was that kind of celebration. But over time, I realized that celebrating my body means treating it as it needs at the moment. Right. So if my body needs rest, I won't force myself to do a hard workout because that's what people say you should do. Right. I don't do that. Or if it's like, if I feel like I want to eat something that used to be considered bad, like maybe a small piece of chocolate, or maybe a cupcake, I might have a little bit, right? Rather than saying, no, you should not have that, you cannot have that, and so on and so forth. So the journey has had its ups and downs, right? I think anybody, whether you're in a bigger body or a typical body, there will be days, or there will be that rocky road that goes with it. I think what really paved the way for this body acceptance really has been yoga and mindfulness, right? The physical practice of yoga made me realize that my body was so much stronger than I thought it was. It deserved so much more than what I was giving it, and that it was it is such an amazing container for my being. Right. So if it does all this for me, why should I treat it differently? So I have to be kind to it too. I have to treat it the way it deserves, and to think of this body as something amazing, just as the body takes care of the amazingness in me, right? So that's kind of where it came. Then when mindfulness came into my practice, I became more aware of, let's say, the connection of my mind and my body, the connection between the behaviors that I do, for example, eating, or particularly eating cupcakes. I'll use that as an example. Okay. So the connection of that behavior to an emotion. And I realized that, when I'm reaching for cupcakes at times, it's not just because it tastes good and I want to have some, but there was often like an emotional connection. Like I was probably feeling upset about something, I was hurt about something, I was sad. And when I made that connection, what happened was there was a shift in the relationship between my mind, my body, and my emotions. I gave myself permission to feel these emotions, that it's okay to feel sad at times, and that you don't have to pretend things are okay by stuffing yourself with something that makes you feel good, period. Right? So allowing myself to feel my feelings as they were at that time, resourcing in other ways, maybe reaching out to a friend, or perhaps coming into my movement practice, and then just allowing myself to feel and be with those emotions. That was I think that the catalyst for this shift in accepting my body. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that and putting it in words that I absolutely relate. And I have no doubt the viewers will also relate. Because when I was preparing for this interview, I was reading your website, your social media, and I started to analyze, when did my body acceptance happen? And that's the key. I wasn't able to put it into words, but now I can. It's becoming aware, noticing what is happening. Is stop living in that mode of doing, eating. Because, for example, when I moved from Chile, I'm from Chile, by the way, I was for the first time by myself without my family. And in Chile, everything is related to food. Something good happens, we eat. Something bad happens, we eat. It's always, we want to be with friends, we eat. So I came here and I found myself missing all those connections, but I had the food. So I went to the food and everything.
Yeah.
So yes, And when I decided, of course, I came here. Then my mom came. She told me, "Oh, you're so big," and those messages that now my mom doesn't tell me anything, but it happened.
Yes.
And then I discovered yoga when I was in a larger body, and I also got the message that I needed to stop dieting and hurting my body because I was doing it for the wrong reasons. I wasn't doing it like the doctors tell you to be healthy, because I was already healthy. All my health was fine. My blood work was fine. I was doing it to feel accepted.
Yes, I hear you. I'm from the Philippines, and we have the same cultural leanings towards food. Everything is connected to food. Even, let's say, work meetings. Work meetings should not be done without a meal, right? There's always food as part of that connection. But yes, and this is a thing. I did mention that I came into yoga when I was actually in a smaller body. I had lost, actually at that time, roughly around that time, a little earlier than that, I lost about 80 pounds in a span of just 8 months. That was because I was really truly sick, right? But then by the time I came into yoga, I had gained a few pounds back, but I thought I was in my quote unquote perfect weight. This is the body that I love, right? But then I realized that when I was thinner, that was also the unhealthiest I was. I was not eating well, right? I would restrict my food. I would only eat, let's say, boiled or steamed vegetables like 90% of the time. Then I would have on occasion a piece of fish or something like that, but very rarely. And it was really restrictive. I was not exercising much because I had no energy to do it. My blood work wasn't so good. I had to, think of things like that. And just to put it in context, I did have some hormonal issues at that time. It was related to polycystic ovarian syndrome. And of course, if for many women who, or people in women in female bodies, who have been diagnosed with polycystic ovaries, the first thing the doctor would often say is, you need to lose weight, right? And I took that too hard. And even with that, my menstrual cycle was not regular. I had to take certain medications. And I think for many people with polycystic ovaries, they sometimes prescribe, I think it's called metformin. It's like a diabetic drug that just helps regulate the system, right? But like I said, I was at my unhealthiest then when I decided to, not take the med. I'm not advocating for disobeying your doctors. I did this with my doctor's consent. I said, this medication just makes me feel sick. I'd like to try something else. And so we compromised, and we worked on managing or maintaining a movement, right? So that there is exercise in my life. There's a better balance in my hormones and whatnot. And yin yoga was the one that really helped regulate my hormones. And after about 2 years of consistent yin practice with minimal medication, because I stopped taking all the medicines my doctor prescribed. When I did a follow-up visit with her at some time, she was like, while there is no cure for polycystic ovaries, she was the scan showed that it was very unremarkable. I think that's the word that was used. The cycles until now have been pretty regular. And my point in sharing this is that, if you've been told that you have to lose weight to become healthier, yes, there might be some truth to that in some cases, but your size does not dictate your health. It is what you do. It is your lifestyle. It is also your genetics that might contribute to it, right? Beyond your size. So
absolutely. Yes. And as you were mentioning, yes, when I was dieting, I wasn't even moving because my whole life was scheduled around the food. So I wake up and I knew now I need to eat this, and I had a balance to weigh the things.
Oh.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it was my whole life was around the food. And I remember I was losing all the weight. On one hand, people were celebrating me, how amazing you look. I felt miserable. I
Mm-hmm.
I trigger myself migraines because even though I
Mm.
was healthy in a big body, I started forcing my body to become something that is not meant to be, basically.
Yes.
And the moment I said no, this is enough, it's when my doctor gave me a medication to suppress my appetite.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to the pharmacy, I got the bottle, and it was a bottle like this big. And I read the side effects and I said, what am I doing to my body? What? And I still have the bottle there. I never opened it. And that day I decided, no, enough.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Wonderful. Great. And that's the thing, right? We do have to advocate for ourselves because people will celebrate you when you're in a smaller body. Oh, you look so good. You should. I mean, much as growing up, people would always say, "Oh, you're so pretty, but you need to lose weight." Things like that.
Yes.
And I always tease my mother about this. Just like your mom, she'd make comments when before, because I think they come from a place of love. They did not mean to harm me or to make me feel bad, right? They were doing it because that's what they thought was right. Because that's what society taught them as well, that if somebody wants to find a partner, get married, have children, etc., which is for Filipino women, for example, that used to be the ideal, right? You go to school, you get married, you have children, you live a good life. Outside of that, you're not living a good life, at least back then when I was younger. So that's what my family would often say, hey, here, let's exercise together. They were very supportive, right? I have to give them credit for that. And I never felt unloved for my size by my family. But there was always that it would be better if you were thinner.
And that's the biggest lie. That's
Yes,
the biggest lie.
definitely.
Because once you are in that smaller body, you still have those voices in your head. You still feel you're not enough. So the transformation needs to come from inside first.
Yes. And that's why I use the word relationship. It's having this relationship with your body rather than being the dominant person over the body, right? It's a relationship. Your body does something for you, you do something for your body, and you work together. You can't punish the body because the body will fight back, right? The more you restrict it, the more it will kind of hold on to all this calories and fat or whatever, because it needs to survive, right? So it shuts down. I'm not a medical doctor, I could be wrong, but my understanding is, when the body goes in survival mode, it actually holds on to the nutrients so that it can perform its basic functions, right? So the more you restrict it, the more it will hold on to whatever it can receive and will not expend energy. Right. So you're not really doing yourself any favors.
No.
Yeah.
You were mentioning at the beginning that when you first started your practice, you felt like maybe unsure to go to a studio. So I would like to know, why do you think representation, especially in yoga, matters?
Because if I had seen bigger bodies going to yoga before, I think I would have done it much earlier, right? Even any movement practice. I remember at one time I would go to the gym and, the fitness trainers, they tend to me, sure, but I could feel that the attention was different compared to someone who was more fit or who looked better in quotations, right? So I did feel that I'm not welcome sensation. So I thought that would be true for all movement practices, right? And I think if there is representation, then many other people who might be afraid, hesitant, or uncertain that this is even a possibility will feel that, hey, I can see myself in that body, so I can do it too, right? In fact, one of my favorite stories is that I've heard it many times. I was already a facilitator or a yoga teacher then, that when I walk into a space, you kind of see people like, she's the teacher, right? There's that surprised look, right? Especially like in the Philippines when I first started, yoga was it is part of the fitness industry, right? So it was really seen as a fitness practice rather than a mind-body practice, at least from the perspective that I was seeing back then. It's changed quite a bit now, which is wonderful. There's a more holistic approach to it, but it cannot be denied that there are still many people or many places that advocate or that promote yoga as a place for weight loss and to have a toner body and so on and so forth. So I had entered this space, and I was hired as a private for a private session for a little family. And so the older woman looked at me and said, "You're the teacher?" Then I was prepared to give a defense, that because when your competency feels threatened, you're like, "Of course I am. I am qualified for this," and so on and so forth. Before I could even say anything, she said, "Oh, that's so wonderful. I think I can do this." Right? So it made me feel like I really had to I really had value in this space, right? And I didn't have to defend myself. I just had to show up as I am, and the people who need me will come, and if they're looking for something else, that's okay. I don't have to be the teacher for everybody. But as one of my favorite quotes from Jivana, so Jivana of Accessible Yoga, I might be paraphrasing this a little bit because I might be saying it wrong, but the point is, he said something like, there's a difference between people not coming to your class and not feeling welcome to come to your class, right? So I think representation gives us the opportunity to feel welcome. People who are in marginalized bodies can feel welcome when they see themselves represented on Instagram, in a yoga studio, in a movement base, even in a fitness center. So yeah, I think it's crucial. And to be honest, as much as I am active on Instagram, I'm very shy. Right? So even preparing for this, I had to wake up early, sit in meditation for some time, and remind myself why this is important. Because, it's easier to say, I feel uncomfortable doing this, so I won't. Maybe somebody else can do it, right? Right. So that's why I have that Instagram account, which was a conscious effort for me to show bodies moving in asana, whether in supported asana or non-supported asanas, right? So I still see value in doing quote unquote traditional asanas in my pictures, just to show to help people in bigger bodies know that you can do it, we can do it. Like, you just have to show up.
Yes. Love it. Yes. And thank you for sharing this and in such an honest way, because it absolutely it's challenging, and you need to have thick skin to decide to go into social media. For example, I consider myself a disruptor, but every single time I enter the fitness spaces with my message, I receive the backlash. So, you need to be prepared for that. Thankfully, we have the tools that yoga gives us, but we're still like swimming against the river, against the ocean.
Yes.
That's why it's so important that we keep on doing it.
Yes. And I've been really blessed to have a community that welcomed me, right? First, of course, in the yoga landscape here in my country, I ended up in a yoga studio called Yoga Plus, right? And what I loved about that space, and continue to do so, we are now doing virtual classes, because in the Philippines we're still under a very confusing lockdown. I think people around the world know what this COVID pandemic has been like and whatnot. In the Philippines, we've been on some form of lockdown, ranging from extreme lockdown to a little looser lockdown for 560 days now. All right. And so fitness studios, gyms, yoga places have had to shut down. We have not been allowed to open since March 2020. So we've transitioned to online spaces. But I think, that place really made me feel not just welcome as a facilitator, but welcome as a human being, right? When their tagline back then was yoga for everybody. And while, many people might use that hashtag even in their social media or claim that in posts that they share, I did feel that it was true in that particular space because they really represented, they had facilitators who were older. They had very young facilitators. They had very big facilitators like myself. They had those who were, not the typical image of what a yoga teacher would look like, right? So community has definitely been an important part of this journey towards acceptance, because it is like you're swimming against the tide. You're fighting for your space in it. And if you're fighting alone, it's really difficult. It's like easy to give up. But when you connect to a community, it's like, I do have allies here. Yes, they might not have the same lived experience or maybe not understand it exactly right away, but they're willing to learn and to support and advocate for you as well. Then, of course, now that we're in the social media, internet world, especially online space, especially since this whole, transition, coming into the accessible yoga community, connecting with Yoga for Humankind, which really has been a wonderful community that I've grown with in the past year and a half. And that really made me realize what it means to welcome myself just as I am within a community. I didn't have to fit in to the community. I was welcome just as I was in these communities. And that really strengthened that relationship I have with my body, that I don't need to punish you or fix you so that I will be accepted. I have to accept you. Then the acceptance happens all around.
Totally agree. Yes. And I would like to ask you, how would you define or how would you describe the way movement supports mental health? Why is it important?
Yes. Well, for one, we live in a world where we live in our heads a lot, right? We're always thinking about the next thing that needs to be done. There are all these rules and structures that we are following and going through. And in many ways, the modern life, being on a productive mode, busy, etc., has taken us away from our physical bodies, right? How many of us really pay attention to how our body feels, how we're breathing, how much we're sleeping, when we drink water, how we eat, etc., right? Because these are just the functions that we don't pay attention to. So yoga, movement in general, I find really connects us back into our bodies, grounds us in the space, and allows us to move from that space of awareness and presence. If you'd like to look at a more, how do I say this? Other ways of considering it is that because movement forces us to pay attention to our breathing, it helps us regulate our nervous system, right? I find that yoga in particular, because the movement is not always as intense as a weightlifting movement practice or running or whatnot, really gives a little more room for interoception and noticing the sensations in the body. And that connects with the way our mind works. We become aware of the thoughts, how these sensations are influencing our feelings, how it feeds into our thoughts, and so on and so forth. right? And if you recall the example I gave earlier, it was, through movement that allowed me to make that connection that, okay, why am I eating this? What are the feelings behind this? And if I wasn't attuned to my body, then it would be harder to make those connections. Because, I've been told in the past that maybe you're eating to cover up an emotion. And then when it was just in your head, it's like, what are you talking about? I don't understand. But when you experience it in your body, which movement offers, right? When you connect with that, then like I said, it's a mind-body connection. That's when the connections really become clear. You untangle this web of confusion, of lack of clarity, and you find that, right? Also, on a more practical level, when we move our body, it stimulates, hormones and endorphins and so on and so forth. And I don't think, once that's stimulated, we often feel pleasure, right? And when we are in a pleasurable state, that contributes to a better mental state as well, right? There are many, many different ways, but overall, if you want to think about it, I think that movement allows us to tap into our nervous system. We're able to regulate it. We're also able to stimulate when needed, right? And secondly, it connects to the breath. And when we are breathing better, we are connected to the moment, right? And it promotes overall physical, mental, and emotional health.
Love it. Beautifully explained. Yes. So many benefits. Absolutely.
Yes. Mm-hmm. For sure. But I also want to offer this caveat or this reminder that, as a mental health professional, right? I do have to offer the reminder that we cannot dismiss feelings of anxiety, depression, mental health conditions, and just saying, oh, you just need to meditate and exercise, and that will cure your anxiety, cure your depression. No need for this, no need for that. While it is true that movement can definitely supplement and support your health at the time of crisis, people who might be having suicidal ideations, self-harming behaviors, yoga may not be just the support they need. It definitely can help. It can help provide a better relationship with the body, with the mind, and so on and so forth. But professional help can also be an important factor into it. So please don't ever promote, especially, knowing our scope of practice as yoga facilitators, right? Or mindfulness facilitators, that you cannot just say, yes, we can cure your anxiety, meditate, do this breathing technique, and your anxiety will go away. It's just a matter of, your mind, you're not meditating enough. That's really a big pet peeve for myself, right? When I hear that. And I'm not saying that mindfulness meditation will not help with your anxiety. But again, at crisis mode, especially when there's a mental health situation going on, know your scope of practice, reach out to the professionals, support, be an ally with the professional. It's a community, it's a collaborative effort, right? So, that's I think
totally agree. Thank you so much for naming it.
Yeah.
Because sadly we see it in yoga.
Yes.
Promises about healing, erasing forever your depression, doing this pose for only 10 minutes. No.
Yes.
No. So thank you. And finally,
yes,
give all your information. How can people find you? Promote yourself, everything.
All right, thank you. So if you'd like to know more about the work that I do, you can find me on Instagram at Bigger Body Yoga PH. You can also check out my website, which I do have to update a little more frequently. It's riatirazonawellness.com, right? So you can see information about the work that I do, my clinical practice as well. And, and that's why it was important for me to remind that information or to say that information information. When I step in as a yoga facilitator, I am there as a facilitator, not as a psychologist. In my clinical space, I am there as a psychologist. I might use some of the tools like a breathing technique or whatnot, right? But I put that in. So all that information will be found in my website, and there are ways that you can. That's how you can contact me. I do online classes for the Yoga Plus Virtual Studio, and I do some support facilitation with Yoga for Humankind as well. So you could check out those websites. So that's Yoga Plus PH, and then yogaforhumankind.org.
Amazing. So you have all the information. Yes. Thank you so much, Ria, for the work you're doing, for sharing your passion. Thank you.
And thank you for the work that you do too. You're an inspiration to me when I feel stuck at, adapting asanas or finding ways to support others in a way that I might not be familiar with. I just check out your videos. They always inspire me and say, "Oh yeah, I didn't think of that." Right. So thank you for the work that you do, and having this podcast, right? I think together we can change the narratives about the human body, our relationships with the body, and really create a kinder, more compassionate world together.
Yes. That's why we're doing the work.
Yes.
So thank you one more time. A big hug. We stay in contact. A big hug in your homes. Press like, share this episode, subscribe to the channel, because this is a message everybody needs to know. Yoga really is for all bodies and all minds. And see you. A big hug. See you in a new episode. Bye.